Time to light the match for the burning truth with Casey Hendrickson.
George, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Administrator Criswell, is Miss Washington lying to us?
Miss Washington has...
She said it's common practice. You said it's reprehensible and isolated. Both statements can't be true. So someone's not giving us the facts. And I'm kind of trying to figure out who's not telling the truth.
The actions that Miss Washington took were unacceptable.
Well, you had another employee. Now, they remain anonymous, but I think one of my colleagues pointed this out earlier. A FEMA official who spoke on condition of anonymity said Miss Washington likely received, quote, very clear guidance from her supervisors. Is that not that person lying too?
I have not received any evidence outside of the screenshot that Miss Washington directed.
So those
her
two
team.
people are wrong. They're not telling the truth to us.
We are currently investigating this.
But that's not what you said. You said this is isolated, reprehensible, hasn't happened. This is the only time. And they're saying, nope, 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 it's commonplace.
I am saying that FEMA's mission is to help all people.
Well, let's look at maybe the best evidence we have is the actual screenshot. Can you put the screenshot up on the screen? Let's look at what the text message said. The text message said, implement best practices. Like, this is the best practices. We're going to implement them. And they talk about making sure you're going in pairs or with more than one person, avoid the Trump homes, drink your water, take your towel, coconut waters. So stay hydrated, walk with someone else, and don't go to the Trump homes. It seems pretty common and matter of fact in the actual evidence we do have, the text message itself. But you're still saying Miss Washington and this other person aren't telling the truth.
When I received this text message, it was not in accordance with the way we conduct business at FEMA, and I directed
even though it said best practices, even though it said stay hydrated, which everyone would agree with, even though it said go in pairs, which everyone would agree with, even though it said bring a towel, make sure you're covered. I mean, it said coconut water is the best way to stay, even though it said all those practical things, the part about avoiding the Trump homes, that's not a best practice, that's not commonplace. Is that what you're saying?
That is nowhere in our policy, and I can't speak to
I'm not saying it's in your policy
behind what Miss Washington did.
But it was okay. Now, and her supervisor is this Mr. Hershey. Have you talked to him and to find out if he knew this was happening?
I understand that he was in her chain of command, and this is under investigation.
Have you talked to there's 13 people on this text message. Have you talked to all 13 of those individuals?
This incident is under investigation.
That's not what I asked you. I know it's under investigation. We know how investigations work when it's done inside the agency. It takes forever. I'm asking, did you talk to the 13 people on this best practices text message?
The Office of Professional Responsibility has taken this, and they are following appropriate protocol to investigate.
Is the Inspector General looking at it as well?
And I have asked the Inspector General to take a look at this.
Any idea when they're going to talk to these 13 people since you have it? Have you talked to, how about you personally? Have you talked to any of these 13 people?
I have not talked to them.
You have not talked to any
I
of them?
have an entire team that focuses on this investigation, and that's what they're doing.
Seems to me it's part of a mindset that's in government. And this is the scary part, because I think it's broader. And you don't have to take my word. Take it what people have said. I mean, this reminds me, we've talked about this many times, but I can think of, well, actually the same person, let's go back to that. The same person who said that this likely received very clear guidance, this other FEMA official, also said this: I have heard from other entities who were serving in North Carolina that there was clear guidance to be mindful, quote, of the types of people who are in Western North Carolina. That's pretty derogatory stuff there, isn't it?
I have not seen it.
But you know what it sounds like? It sounds like Peter Strzok. Peter Strzok, when he said, I just went into Walmart, I can smell the Trump supporters. Sounds like Joe Biden when he said, the garbage I see is the Trump supporters out there. Sounds like the guys the Democrats had, the professor the Democrats had testify back in 2019 in the impeachment. Conservatives, especially very conservative people, tend to spread out, perhaps because they don't even want to be around themselves. This disdain, this mindset that's in the government where everyone's deplorable, everyone's garbage, everyone is, smelly people at Walmart and
I mean, it goes on. That is Deanne Criswell, the FEMA administrator, testifying before the House Oversight Committee. Of course, that's Representative Jim Jordan from Ohio. My Ohio folks out there. So I ran into a video just a few days ago and it was only a couple of days old. This video was of a volunteer who had set up an aid camp for victims of Hurricane Helene. That camp is still going, and they still aren't getting any help from FEMA. Still, to this day. To this day. Which seems pretty grotesque, don't you think? If you've got the FEMA director out there going, no, criticism of FEMA is fake news and conspiracy theories and stuff like that, how is it that we still have people helping victims of the hurricane who still aren't getting any help from FEMA? Now, I got a message today. I'm working with my contacts in North Carolina to confirm. I just want you to know that. I cannot independently substantiate this at this time, but I am working on it. Somebody sent me a message and said that it's starting to get cold in North Carolina and people are having their kids taken away by CPS because they're living in tents because FEMA hasn't helped them. So now there's groups out there that are looking for RV donations and camper donations and things like that. The United Cajun Navy, which we have talked about many times on the show, are making the plea. We need campers and RVs. North Carolina law says that children can be removed from parents that don't have housing. So we're trying to get as many families in temporary housing before winter sets in. Where's the FEMA trailers? Those hotel rooms that we're still talking about, Tim Kennedy exposed. The hotel rooms where FEMA employees are staying in, government employees are staying in, but the victims of the hurricane can't stay in. They have to stay in the tents outside. How is it that just this week there's a brand new video of rescue efforts and they still don't have any help from FEMA? Just this week. How's it even happening, folks? Honestly. Doug P. over at Twitchy. Another classic from this is what the media called a conspiracy theory vault. And once again, talking about the FEMA nonsense. Because FEMA continues to be a problem. And like I said before, I get it. You don't want to put on the tinfoil hat. Okay. You don't have to put on the tinfoil hat. But you had Democrats, you had members of the news media out there point blank telling you, man, it might be a good thing for Joe Biden that the hurricane hit North Carolina where it hit because these are Republican voters who won't show up. Of course, they did show up. One of the more recent examples of these conspiracies that the news media and Democrats tell you is a conspiracy that turns out to be true happened when the media did the thing where they assume everything Trump says is false, and then they do so-called fact checks without actually checking any facts. This is a common thing in the news media. Biden also got in on that act after claims that FEMA hurricane aftermath response was being politicized. As usual, the Dem media claim of something being disinformation turned out to be disinformation. FEMA has now confirmed the incident, saying that it is deeply disturbed. The employee was fired, except now we have a second employee, a second whistleblower in FEMA, which is what Jim Jordan was talking about there. And it not only was the so-called conspiracy that FEMA aid workers were avoiding Trump supporters, but then FEMA said, first of all, they said it wasn't happening. Then they found out it was happening. Then they said it was isolated. Then we found out from another FEMA employee that it was widespread. Well, you notice the non-answers that Criswell gave in that hearing as well. Jim Jordan didn't ask her to say what those witnesses had said, what the people in that text thread had said. He just said, did you talk to them? And eventually she was able, I haven't talked to them. I have a whole team. I don't know. Listen, here, this is just me. Maybe I'm Maybe I'm out of touch with how to be a boss. Haven't been a boss in a while. Maybe I'm out of touch. If I'm the boss of an organization, particularly one that is out there to save the lives of people, and I find out that my employees are not saving the lives of people because of some arbitrary thing, whether that is sex, gender, socioeconomic status, skin color, or political affiliation, and I find out about that, I don't know. I probably pick up the damn phone and start talking to people because I'm the boss. Does that not seem like a reasonable response, Morgan? I have a whole team of people. Really? You had a whole team of people that allowed it to happen and then told everybody it didn't happen, and then you're forced to sit there on national television and say, hey, I lied to you all. It did happen. But it was just an isolated incident. Here comes another whistleblower going, no, this is widespread. If you're the boss of an organization where something like this develops, you don't talk to anybody? Really? You don't pick up the phone? You don't look at your team and go, all right, there's 13 people on this text thread. I need to talk to every damn one of them right now. You don't do that? That doesn't come up. That's almost as ridiculous as the Indiana Democratic Party going out there and telling you, we didn't have anything to do with the Democrat Senate leadership picking somebody who sexually harassed 3 women and admitted it as the Senate majority or minority leader. We don't have any say. We're just the party. That's almost as dumb as that. What an amazing defense. I've got a team of people. Do you now? Could the team maybe corral the 13 people on that text thread and bring them in so you can start getting some details? So when you go in front of Congress and you're talking to Jim Jordan in the House Oversight Committee, you know, the committee that's designed to oversee your activities because they have oversight over you, you could maybe, I don't know, answer a question that he asks, which seems like a pretty basic question. You realize that there are people out there defending this woman right now? They're defending her. How is there a defense? It happened. It doesn't matter if it was widespread. It happened. They've admitted it happened. You probably need to talk to all of the people involved and find out how it happened, to what extent, for how long, and make damn sure it doesn't happen again. What usually happens when you make an inappropriate pass at a coworker? They send you to a class, right? If you don't get fired. If you're lucky enough and it was innocent enough that, hey, you got to get re-education here. You got to go to this class. You got to learn how to not be a pervert. And then if you're a pervert again, we'll fire you. Right? That's kind of the path sometimes. Like if it's just an innocent thing, you didn't actually touch anybody or anything like that. Like there isn't even anything at FEMA right now that is being indicative of them moving in that direction. Nothing at all. Nothing about, hey, we have to get all of our thousands of employees that take billions of your dollars every single year. We have to get them into a room and let them know to not let Americans die because of their political affiliations. That's an astounding defense. No, I haven't talked. No, I'm busy doing other things. Cocktail parties, putting my head down, getting to work, whatever it is. I'm busy doing that. I have a team. Well, your team didn't contact anybody, and your team didn't bring any information back to you, so you could relay that information to the committee in Congress that oversees your activities. So what's your team doing? Oh, they're investigating. Are they? You don't even know if your team has talked to anybody in that texting thread. It was a simple question. Has anybody on your team even talked to these people? I can't answer that. Really? This isn't priority number 1 for you. And there are people defending her. Got more coming up. You're tuned into The Burning Truth. So I found the video of the disaster recovery and relief workers that have gone to help hurricane victims. And I posted that in the Daily Show prep today. It's, I don't know, it's like 12 minutes. But this group was there from the first day, and they're still there right now. telling you everything that has kind of happened with them, some rescue stories, some other stuff, kind of explaining the relief efforts, the lack of aid, and some of that stuff that's in there. So I would encourage you to go check it out. I am working with people in North Carolina to find out if there's a real issue with CPS and if they have started to already take kids, or if they're threatening to take kids, or if it's just something that they're trying to hedge against as things get colder, because I don't know. And I cannot confirm the story. But I would also assume that, if you're sleeping outside because your home is now gone and the federal government's not providing you with shelter and you've just got a tent and then the temperature starts to dip, I would imagine that there could be some government officials that would come around and be like, your kids can't stay here. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they would remove them permanently or even for an extended period of time or anything like that. I just letting you know, I don't have the nuances here. I'm working on it. But it was something that was passed on to me today by a listener, and they tagged a credible source, frankly. So I'm looking at it, and we'll see what we can figure out. So the FEMA director, whom you just heard, basically say, no, I haven't talked to any of my people that were involved in this horrendous scandal. I haven't done any investigation. I have a team. She said that the FEMA director says criticism of the agency is misinformation. Really? Didn't you also say that the notion that you were not helping Trump supporters was misinformation? And then we ended up finding out from more than one of your own employees that it was happening. That's pretty darned amazing. And there's still relief efforts going on that they haven't gotten any supplies from FEMA. They haven't seen FEMA. I just found out today that they have not started to rebuild Maui. Did you know that? They're still in the cleanup phase in Maui from the wildfires. They have not started the rebuilding. So there's people living in hotels. There's people who are living with relatives and friends. There's people who have now moved off of the island. The governor has actually forced people who have rental properties there to open them up to people, because a lot of those rich celebrities weren't willing to open up their vacation home to victims. Didn't even know that until today. We got more coming up. You're tuned in to The Burning Truth.
The Burning Truth with Casey Hendrickson.
Good afternoon. Thank you for tuning in to The Burning Truth. I am your host, Casey Hendrickson. I do want to thank R&B Car Company, locations in South Bend, Warsaw, and Fort Wayne. You can go to rbcarcompany.com. Speaker Mike Johnson has responded to the trans bathroom issue. Again, Representative Nancy Mace, who is, again, a sexual assault survivor, has authored legislation to prevent men from going into the women's bathroom in Congress, because the very first transgender congressperson will take office in January. And as a result, Nancy Mace does not want a biological dude in the bathroom with her for obvious reasons. So Mike Johnson had, he wimped out. He wimped out over it initially. John Daniel Davidson kind of called him out over at the Federalist. House Speaker Mike Johnson failed to answer a very easy question lobbed at him Tuesday morning. And he was asked whether Representative Sarah McBride, an incoming freshman lawmaker from Delaware who identifies as transgender, is a man or a woman. McBride is a man who presents as a woman, so Johnson's answer should have been easy. McBride is a man. But he couldn't do it. Instead, he smirked and deflected. I'm not going to get into this. We treat all persons with dignity and respect, and we will, and I'm not going to engage in silly debates about this. He did, however, acknowledge that there's a concern about the use of restroom facilities and locker room and all of that. Well, yeah. Now, there is. There is a difference between saying what you want him to say and him also being honest. You know, he doesn't have to say it the way that, you know, perhaps you or I or John Daniel Davison wants to say it, but he can be honest. Now, the reason I bring this up is because Speaker Johnson came to Indiana not that long ago and spoke. And in that speech, as with all things that Speaker Johnson talks about, he brings his faith into it. And there's being polite and kind and respecting people, and then there is perpetuating a lie. And that is where a lot of people draw the line. But if Speaker Johnson is somebody who is propped up by the strength that he gets from his faith, one would have to wonder, why has he been so tepid on this issue? Now, he did finally actually address it. I think that came today where he said that they don't belong in the same bathroom. Now, when Nancy Mace proposed her legislation, there is a transgender individual on social media who then threatened her life. Said that he wanted to go into the bathroom with her, grab her ratty-looking bleeping hair, drag her to the floor, and repeatedly bash her head until blood went everywhere, and she died. We just listened to the video during the commercial break just now. And isn't that exactly the concern that Nancy Mace has? That's kind of her concern, right? So if your goal is to go out there and say that women don't need to feel threatened in their own spaces by transgender individuals who come into their spaces, but then the immediate reaction to a woman saying, I'm not exactly sure I want them in my space, is to then threaten to kill them, that proves Nancy Mace's point. Now, you can argue that this is one individual all you want, but we've also been over the data. And trans people are statistically much more likely to commit violent acts than the general population is. So there's a concern. Now, you may not like that broad brush. Okay. Jason Rantz. Many of you have seen him on Fox. He's with KTTH Radio. Good radio host, nice guy. In a puzzling and offensive exchange, a Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals judge likened a female-only spa policy to a whites-only policy. Washington State is trying to force a nude spa for women to admit transgender biological men. And this is a case that is happening right now. You know, for those of you who might still be feminists, since I get your messages from you, air quote ladies, I know that you listen. I know that you're stuck in a horrible relationship with somebody who sips soy lattes and you secretly wish that you could have some red meat to entertain you at night. So you listen to this program, hoping to get your fix, your snort, if you will. And I don't mind being used that way. But for those of you who are in that category, I want to remind you of something. Some 20 years ago, a little bit more than that, but certainly over the past 2 decades, feminist groups have ardently advocated for women's only spaces, have they not? Morgan, yes, as a woman, you've heard this too, right? Women only spaces. Now, I've always been okay with women only spaces, always. Sometimes they're in the same building. I have done stories where you had a gym where on Friday afternoon, if you went to the gym, if you were a guy, you could go anywhere in the gym. And then Monday afternoon, when you went back to the same gym, suddenly half of the gym was no longer available to you because you were a guy. And of course, a lot of men were like, well, the equipment I'm going to use today is over there. And they're like, well, too bad. That's for women only. It's not for you. You got to stay over here. And feminist groups supported this and encouraged this and fought legal battles over being able to have this. And then something interesting happened. In a few different locations across the country, men said, you know what? Actually, the gym is way better without women being there. And we would prefer to have a gym just for guys. So when we grunt and we're loud, we don't have some woman going up to the weird, we'll call them a yoga instructor, the guy who stretches for a living, going up to him and complaining about how intimidating the loud guys are lifting heavy weights. And then, of course, you get kicked out or they have that stupid lunk alert nonsense or whatever it is. And so men actually tried to get men's only gyms. Guess who fought against men only gyms? The same feminists who wanted women only gyms. And then other guys started doing it too for like bars. Hey, sometimes a guy just wants to go to a bar and have a drink without somebody who is showing 3/4 of her chesticles sliding up to us and saying, want to buy me a drink? Sometimes you just want to hang out with the boys and be left alone. So they started trying to open up men's only bars. Why? Because there's women only bars, which feminists fought for. And the feminists went to court and fought against the men's only bars. Now, there's a couple of places where you could find a way around it. You had to be a paying member. And even then, some women challenged that. Well, it's not fair that only men can become paying members to join the men's only club because women can become paying members too, but they still can't go. Therefore, it's bad. Then there's the golf course situation. That's another famous one. No, I want to go to the country club too. No, this is where the boys go to get away from their women. They don't need you here. The only women, golf cart girl. You, hag, leave. That was the entire thing. Feminist groups went to court and fought against men from having their own spaces. So there's a part of me, as I'm looking at this, philosophically, I agree with what Jason Rance is getting at. Philosophically, I agree that there should be women's only spaces, particularly in a locker room, bathroom, spa scenario. But there is a part of me that also wonders, I'll bet if feminists didn't hate men so damn much and make it their life's work to attack men, demonize men, insult men, criticize men, and legally battle them at every turn, I'm willing to bet they wouldn't have this problem in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals today like they have. It's just a thought I have in the back of my brain. Now, again, do I think that a biological man should be allowed into a female-only spa? Absolutely not. Just like I think no woman should be allowed into a man's-only spa. Now, only one of the things that I have said in the last 10 minutes will get me in trouble. Guess which one? In a puzzling and offensive exchange, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals judge likened a female-only Olympus spa policy to a whites-only policy. The remarks were made during a federal appeals court hearing in which Olympus Spa is challenging the state of Washington, People's Republic of, for mandating the admission of transgender women or biological men into the spa via the Washington Human Rights Commission. Olympus Spa is a traditional Korean spa with locations in Tacoma and Linwood. Used to live in Linwood. You know, Linwood used to be a part of Tacoma, Morgan, but Linwood's crime was so high that Tacoma was like, listen, we're going to carve you out, and then Tacoma's crime rate like halved overnight. But it is right there by the harbor. You get to see the naval vessels all the time. It's pretty cool. So this is a female-only policy at this traditional Korean spa, restricting transgender women unless they have gone through post-operative sex confirmation surgery. So the spa even has a carve-out for trans women to attend the spa. And the carve-out is the most simple of all carve-outs. You can't come into the women's only spa until you turn your Audi into an innie. And when you turn your Audi into an innie, then you can come in. Because at that point, we're going to assume that you probably really think you're a woman. And you're not here because you have some weird sexual fetish and you will abuse our customers. And they are being challenged by the state of Washington for having that policy. Because the policy should be, I'm a man, I've got the twig and berries, I still want to go and be naked with all of you ladies at the spa. Just hang out with you. And the spa was like, get the surgery and come back. Until then, you can't come in. That is too far. That's too far. Notice how they keep moving the goalposts? No, we don't want to come into your spaces. Then they come into your spaces. We just want our own bathrooms. Then they didn't want their own bathrooms. Then you got everybody to go, listen, if you're willing to chop it off, like, okay, like, you're committed, all right? You can probably commit. Nope, that's not good enough. I shouldn't have to chop it off to be able to go in there. Well, but yes, there's a problem with fetishes and stuff. And like, yeah, well, too bad. You don't know that I have that. You got to let me in anyway. As we talked about yesterday, and we talked about a couple of times since the election, this was like the number one social issue in the country. You leftists, this is why you lost. That and the economy is bad. And is it the worst it's ever been? No, but it ain't great. And pretending otherwise is just nonsense. The border, with what happened with Laken Riley's murderer being convicted today. But then this. It's too far. They were even willing to let biological men in if they were post-op. And that wasn't good enough. And got more coming up. You're tuned into The Burning Truth. You think the opioid crisis is going to get worse now? I mean, they're shaving their heads. They're wearing blue bracelets. I'm going to play you this. So yeah, listen to this. This is some whammon, maybe? Question mark? Don't know. I'm not a biologist. Everbloom Designs in Memphis. Memphis is in what state? Tennessee. Tennessee's a what color state? Red. Like a lot. Now, there are blue places in Tennessee, don't get me wrong, but it's... Anyway, this is what she had to say.
I won't do business with people who support the president-elect. And it is because I need to create a safe place for me, my staff, and my family.
Yeah, too bad. Things are not going good for Everbloom Designs in Memphis, Tennessee, since posting that. So you're not allowed to have Trump supporters come in here. By the way, she looks about exactly how you would expect her to look. Like, I don't even need to describe this woman to you. I can tell you that she has short hair. She wears glasses. You already know what she looks like. Okay. So the same people that told you could not refuse to bake a wedding cake because you religiously could not condone that ceremony. And therefore you had to make the cake. The same people that lied about a pizza place here in Indiana, saying that pizza place was not going to serve gay people. That was always a lie, by the way. That was manufactured by a local news outlet. It was fake news. And that they should be forced to serve a slice of pizza to gay people. The same people are now saying, nah, I won't design any of your stuff if you come into my business because I need a safe place. Well, you know who else needs a safe place? The women at Olympus Spa in Washington State who need to not have some pervert with a sexual fetish walking around in the locker room naked. I wonder what Everbloom Design feels about that story. So naturally, they're catching a ton of backlash. The owner of Everbloom Design now claims that she is the victim. This is according to KWAM Quam Radio in Memphis. I love that name, Quam. Hey, KWAM, can you pick up the show in syndication? Like, I just want to say that. That would be awesome. The Memphis flower, it's a flower shop. Okay. Flower shop that announced a ban on customers who support President Trump. The owner went out of her way to post multiple statements condemning Trump supporters and now says that she's closing because of threats and stuff to their business and themselves. And well, I think a bunch of conservatives need to get married in Memphis, Tennessee, and force her to do the flower arrangements for your wedding.
I was going to say, is this like the opposite of the gay wedding
Bingo.
thing?
More coming up.
Podcasts by Federated Media.